We'd like to welcome you to the 2017 ISWA World Congress and SWANA's WASTECON. Please welcome our hosts for the opening ceremony, Catherine Heinrich and Lindsay Bear. Kat. Kat is the ISWA Young Professionals Group Chair, and Lindsay is the SWANA Young Professional Representative to the International Board. Let's welcome Lindsay and Kat. Thank you.
Well, good morning. Welcome to Baltimore. I am proud to be a Mid-Atlantic Chapter member and your host for ISWA World Congress and SWANA WASTECON 2017.
We've got a lot in store for you this week, so let's get started.
Now, I'd like to introduce our first speaker. He's the president of SWANA and the CEO of Salt River, Pima Maricopa Indian Community Landfill, Rich Allen.
I am SWANA. Welcome on behalf of the SWANA International Board of Directors and its over 9,000 members. It is an honor to host the 2017 ISWA World Congress in conjunction with our annual conference, WASTECON. 55 years ago, a small group of municipal waste managers in Southern California got together to find ways to make the waste industry safer. They knew they could do much more to improve safety together than they could each do on their own. That small group has grown to more than 9,000 members of the Solid Waste Association of North America. Today, SWANA continues our commitment to a safer solid waste industry. If you are not a member of SWANA, welcome. We're glad to have you here with us, and we look forward to getting to know you over this next week. And I invite you to join the 9,000 members that make up this great organization. Thank you.
It's my absolute pleasure to welcome to the stage Antonis Mavropoulos, the President of ISWA and CEO of D-Waste.
Good morning, everybody. It's a big pleasure for me to address this great conference. I grew up reading a lot of SWANA's materials. One of my first mentors was Greg Vogt, who introduced me in the landfill business together with another good friend, Derek Greedy. And the first present I received from the waste management sector was a great tie from NC Vazuki. So I'm very familiar with SWANA, not only technically but also culturally, and I'm really glad to be here with you today. Usually, I used to use the title Fasten Your Seatbelts, trying to describe what we have to do in the era of turbulence we are into. However, today I use it in another view. I say fasten your seatbelts because we're going to have a great conference, a unique event. And in the name of ISWA, I would like first of all to thank SWANA for the hospitality, the great preparation, and the event we're going to live. And I would like also to thank personally David Bitterman. David, please stand up, for his own contribution. Now, we are already in the era of Anthropocene. Anthropocene is the era where the human footprint in the planet becomes comparable with the geological footprint. We don't need to go in many scientific details to understand it. If you move from Mountain Everest until Mariana Trench, you will find a plethora of different plastic materials in all the different sizes and qualities. You can find microfibers even embedded in the small plankton entities, as you can see in the photo on your right. Actually, what's happening right now, and this is part of the Anthropocene, is that we are living in a continuously expanding plastic matrix. We are too dependent on plastics to get rid of them, but we are also too dependent on oceans to let them plastified. At the same time, we face huge challenges as a waste management sector. We have to face the average 3 deaths per day in accidents straightforward related with dump sites. We have to face the fact that industrial dump sites in India, Philippines, and Indonesia are worse for human health than malaria right now. We have to face the disturbance in our business from China's ban on recyclables, which already ISWA discussed 3 years ago during the globalization project. We have to face the new possibilities of the fourth industrial revolution, the use of robots and advanced sensors, the use of artificial intelligence, the use of drones and 3D printers, and what they will make for our own, what will be the impacts for our own work. And I'm glad to announce you here that ISWA is already in discussions with IBM to use artificial intelligence for creating a chatbot that will address questions in natural language about dump sites to all the municipalities for free. I think that all these new technologies, the fourth revolution itself, brings a huge question for us. Are we going to use the advanced technologies to produce more, faster, more efficient, but at the same time to consume faster, to create more waste? Are we going to use them to make the planet more wasteful? Or we can use the same powers that are involved in the fourth industrial revolution to create a better balance between human and nature, to create a wasteless future. This bid is open, and the answer lies a lot to what the waste management sector will do. And this is why one of the first things we have started in ISWA recently was to study the impact of the fourth industrial revolution on the waste management sector. Was to see how advanced sensors, artificial intelligence, and robotics will impact our business socially, economically. Was to see what sort of innovations and what sort of attitudes the sector has against it. We will present the results today. You can see at Ballroom 1 and 2, and everyone who will be there who will receive also a printed report about it. At the same time, there is a big discussion about circular economy. ISWA is working a lot on circular economy. We have produced a series of reports, but in your conference, we have selected to present the 2 reports on your right: circular economy and jeans, circular economy and plastic packaging. What we want to show up is that there are a number of principles that have to be agreed for cooperation between the waste management sector and the design sector as a starting point. If you want to hear more, I would ask you to join the specific session and just watch the video as a starter. Can we have audio?
To try to find out why, we worked with manufacturers, designers, and waste managers across 2 cases.
Do we have audio for the video? Should I move on? Well, I think we have to wait. Anyhow, there is a session about our work on circular economy, and the session is tomorrow morning. I think it's from 8 to 9:30 in room 315, where we will present these 2 reports and we will have a great discussion about the waste sector, the design sector, and how we can cooperate. Last but not least, one of the things we are really working on is marine litter. Okay? Now you will see the video.
Everybody talks about the circular economy, but in real life, it doesn't run that smoothly. To try to find out why, we worked with manufacturers, designers, and waste managers across 2 cases. Working together throughout the value chain is key, and so is listening to what the customer really needs. But to change things, everybody has to change, and change is scary. But when it works, one can see the light at the end of the tunnel. How can it be done? We're still talking, but we are talking to the right people, and we've come up with 5 recommendations. Want to know more? Go to our website and go circular.
So, this is just a teaser. If you want more, join tomorrow. Then, the other issue that is of great concern in our business now is marine litter. We will release tomorrow our brand new report on marine litter and its linkages with waste management. We specifically choose not to write one of the same things that are written in many fancy reports, but to describe how the waste management sector, the industry, faces the problem and how we can contribute to resolve it. And we came up with a single conclusion. The best way for marine litter prevention is to invest in waste management infrastructure in Global South and circular economy in Global North. We will deal with this in details tomorrow, and just another starter, watch this video which will be produced, presented tomorrow.
Or is it really a good day? You're here to go through the first report of the ISWA Marine Littering Task Force project. I don't need to tell you how the problem with plastic waste in our oceans has a long-term damaging effect on our ecosystems, how it has a substantial negative impact upon the tourism and fisheries industries, how it enters the food chain for both animals and humans. Neither do I need to tell you about what a difficult task you have ahead of you to stop plastic waste from entering our oceans, how to stop this major problem at its source. All I can do is to ask you to pay close attention and to do your best with the information you get here today. For our oceans, for our planet, for our future, and for me. Please.
So, last but not least, we are working a lot in our flagship initiative to close the world's biggest dump sites. We have already some preliminary, very encouraging results. We are cooperating with several governments, and somehow we were lucky and we managed that the first of the 50 biggest dump sites was closed by early January in Brazil, and I think our campaign just accelerated what was already in place. Now, we are working on that because what we have in our mind is that closing the dump sites is the easiest and fastest way to contribute substantially to the Sustainability Development Goals, to improve the lives of at least 65 million people, to remove pollutants which are equal to 50,000 cars per year. And we want SWANA to join that. We want SWANA to give us the technical expertise, the connections, the international attitude that you already have. And of course, you know that this project is very closely related to our ISWA scholarship program, where we are trying to demonstrate that the most difficult issue to close the dump sites is to manage the social issues around it, to work with the informal recyclers and find solutions and alternatives for their lives. We will discuss this project at the end of the conference on Wednesday, and I would like to invite you to be here, to be there. Now, I would like to finish going back. Back in 1994, the world, especially New York and London, but many other cities as well, were living what is called the Great Horse Manure Crisis. Thousands of horses were going all around the cities for transportation, for moving trade and people, and the result was that each and every day, tons of manure was accumulated in the roads. In London, Times newspaper wrote that in 50 years, every street in London will be buried under 9 feet of manure. In 1898, there was a great conference in New York, the first urban planning conference. Great engineers, architects, and landscapers gathered, and this conference focused absolutely only on one issue: how to resolve the horse manure crisis. They came up with a conclusion after 4 days that it's impossible to resolve the horse manure crisis without affecting the economy. Does it remind you something? So they stopped the conference and asked for further efforts. Some of the best engineers involved in the problem, some of the best architects, some of the best planners, they couldn't find a good solution. Finally, the solution came from Henry Ford, when he makes cars massively and cheaply available. The solution did not come from the guys that were trying to optimize horse manure management. The solution did not come from the guys that were really involved day to day in the problem, trying to optimize the solution. The solution came from another sector with radical innovation that involved both new technologies, the car assembly line, and new consumption habits. This is a very important lesson for our sector. We have to adapt to the fourth industrial revolution as soon as possible. Otherwise, I'm sure there is a risk that part of our sector will shrink and disappear because other business models from other sectors will evolve. But if you see the long term, the horse manure crisis was resolved, but now we have an air pollution crisis due to cars. And we have to find another way to get rid of this pollution that we continuously produce. To put it in another way, each problem we solve creates new problems to be resolved later. Or, in your words, there is no free lunch out there, and sustainability is not something to achieve. It's a continuous movement towards better balance between consumption of resources, environmental impacts, and human beings. Having said that, I believe that we are in a similar era where transitions like the ones in the horse manure crisis will happen very soon to our sector as well. And what I would like to say is that the waste management sector can certainly get the train of innovation and deliver and create new business models and increase its contribution for a better world. I would like to finish just with this. To do all of this, we need to change. We need to become better, much more, and more active. We need to stop being happy just because we know the solutions. We need to raise the bar to deliver the solutions, to improve the lives of millions of people. We need to stop dealing just between us as a closed club of experts and to open our work to new audiences, to become the reference point for each and every community that asks solutions in waste management. We need to be much more than experts and scientists, active contributors for a sustainable planet. And this is what deserves to ISWA and SWANA, because the history they have, both of them behind, is just the beginning of a bright future, and I think this conference will confirm it. Bonus for the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Antonis. Now please help me welcome to the stage Jane Nishida, Acting Assistant Administrator, U.S. EPA Office of International and Tribal Affairs.
Good morning, everyone. I have to say that I'm a little bit intimidated after that presentation and the video to be following Antonius in terms of his inspiring presentation, but I will try to do my best. First, let me thank Antonius and Richard and David for inviting me to speak to the ISWA World Congress and to be here with you today. And I would also like to thank and to acknowledge Secretary Ben Grumbles with the Maryland Department of the Environment. What my presenter did not mention is that I used to work for the Maryland Department of the Environment, and so I had spent many years coming to Baltimore, so it's good to be back. As mentioned, I work for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. I am now the Acting Assistant Administrator for U.S. EPA's Office for International and Tribal Affairs. And my office and my agency works on a number of the topics that you're going to be discussing over the next few days. Topics with regards to circular economy, with solid waste management, both from an international as well as a tribal perspective, resource management, and the other issues with regards to your conference. However, I've been asked to essentially pick one of the many important topics that you'll be concentrating on this week and to focus a little more detail in terms of what EPA is doing. So the topic that I have chosen is marine litter, and Antonius has given you a little preview of what I'm going to talk about. What I would want to first do is to show you, in terms of marine litter, what it means. The United Nations has estimated that with projections based on business as usual scenarios, there will be more trash than fish in our oceans by 2050. Of the total amount of plastic litter found in the ocean, approximately 80% comes from land-based sources, often consisting of single-use consumer goods. More often than not, this waste finds its way into the oceans because it is deliberately discarded, unintentionally lost, mismanaged, or transported into our waterways by the sea. The remaining 20% of the waste is derived from ocean-based sources such as derelict fishing gear, abandoned nets, and garbage generated by vessels. A study done by the Ocean Conservancy highlighted options for countries to reduce the amount of trash flowing to the ocean, which includes infrastructure improvements. This is most needed in 5 countries in Asia that are responsible for about 55 to 60% of the total volume of marine debris in the ocean. While these countries are actively seeking viable options to reduce marine litter, a lack of strong solid waste management and public awareness remains the greatest challenge, as in many other countries around the world, including the United States. I'm looking forward to seeing the ISWA report, which was mentioned, that's going to be released tomorrow. The most alarming of all the statistics that I just showed you in the last slide is the growing amount of plastic trash entering the ocean. Experts estimate that if the amount of plastic trash or plastic waste going into the marine environment is left unchecked, that by 2025, the ocean can contain 1 ton of plastic waste for every 3 tons of fish. Let me just repeat that. That's 1 ton of plastic waste for every 3 tons of fish. The health effects of plastics are widespread, but unfortunately are not well understood. However, we know that from recent studies that persistent bioaccumulative and toxic substances, PPTs, found in plastics can be harmful not only to marine life, but also to human health, as they accumulate and are passed along in the food chain and the food that we eat. It has also been linked to outbreaks of mosquito-borne illnesses, such as Zika or chikungunya, caused by stagnating water in discarded plastic containers. So for many countries, they're learning that preventing plastics and marine litter is not only an environmental problem or a problem for the economy in terms of tourism, but also a problem in terms of public health. So for the past few years, the issue of marine litter and plastics has been discussed in nearly every international environmental forum. It was highlighted last year at the G7 meeting in Japan, and at this year's G7 Environmental Ministerial meeting in Italy. It has also been the subject of the G20 summit in Germany and of the second United Nations Environmental Assembly meeting that was held in Nairobi last year. In fact, the next session of the United Nations Environmental Assembly will also be taking on the topic. And in fact, the UN Environment has commissioned a study on the sources and impacts of marine debris and microplastics. Also last year, senior officials from the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation discussed marine litter at their meeting in Peru, further highlighting specific regional concerns that are growing. But marine litter has managed to hit many regions around the world, including the Arctic. It is imperative, therefore, that we as a global community work together to prevent and reduce marine litter through improved solid waste management. So you might ask, what is US EPA doing? US EPA is working on marine litter through an initiative which we call Trash-Free Waters. It is a stakeholder-based approach to reducing marine litter through simple and cost-effective solid waste management practices at the local level. Trash-Free Waters is unique in that it takes into account not only the environmental and economic challenges, but also geographic and cultural challenges of the communities, and helps these communities to help identify and prioritize solutions that are relevant and applicable to their local specific needs. We think this approach provides a solid foundation not only for sustainable projects, but also for sustainable communities. So domestically, and I wanted to highlight things here in the Chesapeake Bay. If you haven't been out to the Baltimore Harbor, hopefully you'll see some of the examples of this. For EPA's Trash-Free Waters, we have supported Baltimore City and Baltimore County in its efforts to clean up huge amounts of trash that makes its way into the harbor. The overall effort has spurred many local solutions, including Trash-Free Maryland, which works with local stakeholders and has implemented plastic bag fees in Montgomery County and District of Columbia, as well as obviously communities here. It has also led to innovative technologies such as the Baltimore Water Wheel in the Baltimore Harbor. And again, if you take an evening stroll tonight, you might see the Baltimore Water Wheel that collects trash from the surface. In addition, there is a study that was conducted in the Bay. It was the largest study of microplastics that was conducted in the Bay, called the Chesapeake Bay Trash Haulers. And I also wanted to cite an example of what Baltimore is doing internationally. The state of Maryland is working with the state of Rio to share lessons learned from the Chesapeake Bay with the Guanabara Bay. And one of the lessons that they have shared is what Baltimore and the state of Maryland is doing in addressing solid waste and marine litter. So internationally, we have taken this Trash-Free Waters program and essentially launched it internationally. At our Oceans Conference in 2015, which was held in Chile, we announced this partnership. Our international efforts currently focus on 3 Latin American countries, Peru, Jamaica, and Panama. All 3 of these countries have prioritized marine litter at the national level. They all share tourism as a main economic driver. They all recognize that marine litter on beaches and in coastal communities directly impacts not only the livelihood of their communities, but also their ability to attract tourism. What is unique about the International Partnership Program, the Trash Free Partners Program, is EPA partners with the U.S. Peace Corps. EPA doesn't have a presence internationally in terms of local communities, so we work with our Peace Corps volunteers in these countries, and they are our eyes and ears and our implementers with this program. We're also working with the United Nations Caribbean in order to help national governments in terms of policy initiatives. So I just wanted to highlight what we're doing in those 3 countries. In Peru, we launched a program in the rural town of Chinca on the southern coast of Peru, which is also an area for Afro-Peruvians. And as a result of that Trash-Free Waters initiative, local decision makers are now working particularly with the formalized sector of recyclers in that field. They've identified hotspots and are collecting more recyclable materials that are lost to the environment. Former Administrator McCarthy kicked off that Trash-Free Waters initiative last year, and now the U.S. Agency for International Development is taking this program and replicating it to other parts of Peru. In Jamaica, the Trash-Free Waters initiative again was launched last year. There, the Trash-Free Waters Coordinating Committee is now an organizing force for both government and local stakeholders. There's an ongoing pilot between the Peace Corps and a foundation called the Sandals Foundation that is serving for a model for other communities to improve solid waste in high tourism areas. In addition, the national government is aligning this program with a larger United Nations plastics initiative that will amplify the impacts and leverage skills and experiences. Finally, in Panama, we are holding a stakeholder dialogue this November, but already the national and local institutions are unifying their efforts, and this involves both national governments, NGOs, municipal governments, as well as the private sector. We expect a pilot project to be developed out of this that will again bring long-term sustainability results. The government of Panama has said that they are concerned about trash-free water or trash entering the beaches impacting tourism, and also the trash in the Panama Canal impacting the shipping lanes. So for them, it's not only an environmental issue, but also an economic issue. As I mentioned, EPA has been working on a number of areas that is highlighted, not just not just marine litter, but also circular economy and solid waste. We have worked both domestically and internationally on these other initiatives. So while that I focused today's presentation on marine litter, I welcome at the opportunity in the break to talk to you about the other work that EPA is doing in these initiatives. Bottom line, the waste sector is fundamental in terms of the success of our of all these initiatives that you'll be discussing today. We know that, as was mentioned in the previous speaker, our aim is to reach a wasteless society. It's an ambitious goal, but I know working together we will all achieve it. Thank you.
Now, would you please all join me to welcome to the stage Secretary Ben Grumbles from the Maryland Department of the Environment.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. What a huge crowd. Thank you for all you're doing to be here in Baltimore. What Jane Nishida did not mention, that I'm following her in the program, but also from a career path. She was Secretary of the Environment for the great state of Maryland, which is a position I now hold. And she stole a little bit of my local thunder, which is awesome. I just want to make sure that everyone around the world, representing, 71 countries, David? 72? While you're here in Baltimore, a couple things you absolutely need to do, in addition to spending money for the local economy. One is to make sure that you enjoy the Chesapeake Bay's bounty of seafood, crab cakes, other types of seafood, get a real taste for Baltimore. The other is to see Mr. Trash Wheel and Professor Trash Wheel. Since 2014, those two shiny objects are making great steps, reducing 1.3 million pounds of litter from the Inner Harbor, but also literally advancing environmental education and pollution prevention. But what I want to do in the very brief amount of time that I have with you is to emphasize two very important and timely global trends that are very much embraced in Maryland and in the city. Governor Larry Hogan, who's delighted that you're here in Maryland and in Baltimore, Governor Hogan issued an executive order in June, waste reduction and resource recovery. And this executive order throughout the state of Maryland truly embraces the circular economy and sustainable materials management theme. We're going to be focused on minimizing environmental impacts of materials use throughout the entire life cycle. It's the very first sentence of the governor's executive order. And the policy emphasizes environmentally and economically sustainable methods to capture and reinvest resources into our economy, including everything from metals and plastics to energy, nutrients, and soil. One of the world's second largest estuary, the Chesapeake Bay, its greatest challenge is nutrient pollution. And so resource recovery, a theme that you all have embraced for decades, is now fully embraced by the water sector, finding ways to reduce nutrient pollution by recovering those valuable nitrogen, phosphorus, and other important minerals. The executive order recognizes the sustainable materials management effort that it requires collaboration. We continue, as a state, we continue to be leaders in zero waste. What we don't want to do is have zero collaboration. And so the executive order lays out a very clear path for robust discussion on working with waste managers, landfill operators, county, city government, stakeholders to establish ambitious but achievable goals on waste reduction and recycling, and also to empower new partnerships across state and local agencies, the agricultural, energy, and transportation sectors, as well as environmental organizations and recycling innovators. Some of our recent activities in the spirit of that new executive order and beneficial reuse and sustainable materials management is that our agency, the State of Maryland Department of the Environment, recently issued guidelines on the beneficial reuse of dredged material. That is a critically important amendment to the soil. It can be used for landfill capping. It can be used literally for shoring up our shorelines in the face of climate change and sea level rise. It can also be used as a lightweight building aggregate and other materials. Our agency, the state agency, has also recently published a waste sort, a statewide waste characterization study that examines the waste being disposed of at landfills throughout the state. And obviously, we're going to use that data, we're going to mine that data to shape our priorities for waste reduction and recovery into the future. Now, some of the results were already expected. For example, that food scraps are a key material that needs to be captured. Some others were more surprising for us. For example, the prevalence of highly reusable or recyclable materials such as cardboard or textiles. That's obviously one of the trends that you're up on and that you and your colleagues are going to be talking about, the trends and what products, what materials, the products we get, the packaging we get overnight. How will we manage that increased new opportunity? One of the items that I'm most proud of is that our state is fully embracing food recovery. Last year, we held our first ever statewide, in fact, regional food recovery summit. It brought together collaborators from generators and users of food scraps, government agencies, nonprofits, and elected officials to share information needs and innovate. Innovate with the goal of reducing wasted food in Maryland. Food recovery continues to be a major focus for us in tracking the almost 1 million tons of surplus food scraps generated in Maryland every year. Not only does food recovery help us meet recycling goals, it helps us move towards our climate change goals and improve access to healthy food for all Marylanders and create composting products that improve our soils. The only other item I want to emphasize is climate change. You understand that this linkage between materials and energy and climate and the environment. Today, in Baltimore, representatives of 9 states and stakeholders from out the region are convening to discuss the recently announced consensus agreement of the regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. These 9 states have been working over the last decade to reduce carbon pollution from power plants throughout the 9 states in the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic. We recently agreed, the governors on a consensus basis agreed to continue that effort, that cap-and-trade effort through 2030, and to not only do that, but to strengthen the regional greenhouse gas initiatives, to strengthen the cap so that we'll be reducing 30% more compared to our 2014 reductions of CO2 and CO2 equivalents. That meeting is occurring a few blocks away from you here in the great city of Baltimore. The state has also been a real leader in adopting a state goal and strategies to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions 40% by 2030. And one of the most obvious strategies to do that successfully is to work very closely on the materials management and waste management fronts. I would just like to say that one of the key items for us in doing that is we recognize that by reducing waste, we are reducing emissions and reducing wasted products. We just recently had one of the very first sales under our Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative to sell credits for methane capture and elimination at landfills. So all in all, this event is a tremendously important opportunity to connect the waste management world to the climate change agenda and prove that bipartisan collaborative efforts are going to help lead us to a climate of opportunity and sustainability. Thank you so much for being here, and welcome again to the great city of Baltimore.
Thank you, Ben. I know you are all here to get a better understanding of the big issues in waste and the ways to tackle them within your country. But in 2017, what are the biggest waste issues that are facing your countries? Well, the ISWA and the SWANA Young Professionals conducted a survey to find out that very answer. We asked over 1,400 solid waste professionals from across the globe, including many of you here today. Our survey covered 93 countries, home to 80% of the world's population. So to kick off this conference, we'd like to share with you what we discovered.
But before we do this, we'd like to ask you, the audience, a few questions. And to answer, we need you to give a round of applause. The first question is just to get a feel of who's in the room. So, if you're from the United States of America, please give yourself a round of applause. Now, if you're from Europe, please give yourself a round of applause. And last but not least, if you're from anywhere else in the world, please give yourself a round of applause. Fantastic. Now that we're all warmed up, we have a really important question for you. Applaud if you agree that one of the biggest challenges in the world when it comes to waste is marine litter.
Many people in the audience seem to agree that marine litter is one of the biggest waste issues. However, surprisingly, from our research, we found that not one single country voted marine litter as one of the biggest waste issues. In fact, it wasn't even one of the top 3 waste issues. And as we already heard from Jane, one of the statistics from Ellen MacArthur Foundation, that by 2050, there will be more plastic than fish in the sea. Marine litter is killing our wildlife, it's polluting our beaches, and it's threatening our food security. However, one of the most surprising findings was that it was not the top choice. So, I'm sure you all have your theories as to why this is, but the reality remains that it is a top global priority, regardless of whether it was acknowledged as a priority or not, and is one of the many topics that will be addressed at the conference this year. So what were the largest issues that we found out?
When it comes to waste challenges, we found that countries across the world can be broadly split into 3 groups. First, the red group. The experts in these countries identified that they are dealing with severe waste issues relating to a lack of basic infrastructure for sanitary disposal of waste. The combined population of these countries is more than 3 billion people. It includes places like Nigeria, Brazil, and India, and a number of other developing countries. The most frequently raised challenge by experts in the red group was open dump sites and open burning of waste, an issue that ISWA has taken leadership on, having launched its campaign to close the world's most polluting dump sites last year. Next, the blue group. These countries are more advanced in their waste infrastructure, and they're mainly focused on increasing levels of recycling. More than 2 billion people live in these countries, which includes places like the United States, France, and China. Our survey found that when you dig down into ways to increase recycling, the largest barrier is not technology or finance. The most frequently raised challenge by the experts we surveyed was encouraging the public to participate in recycling programs. Now, it isn't easy to motivate large populations to recycle, and those that have succeeded are able to look at other issues with a greater focus. And that's the green group. The experts we surveyed in these countries identified that their biggest challenge relates to waste prevention. The combined population of countries in the green group is less than 500 million people, and it includes places like Sweden, Germany, and Australia. And the most frequently raised challenge in this group was lack of circular product design. This is an issue that Europe is paying a lot of attention to and is dedicating 650 million euros for its research and innovation under its circular economy package.
Now, there were some outliers in the data, but these categories do provide you a general overview of the big global issues in 2017. Just like you, the young professionals are on the hunt for solutions, and at this year's conference, we'll hear from experts on how to tackle these big issues. Included in your program, you'll see that the YPs are running a workshop today at 3:45, where we'll be brainstorming solutions to 3 of the world's top biggest solid waste issues. You don't need to be a young professional to attend. So if you're interested in coming along, we'd love to have you contribute to the discussion. There are only 90 places available, so we'll hopefully see you there. You'll also see in the program that we'll be hosting some breakout sessions after each of the keynote speakers, so you can pick their brains in an approachable setting.
We look forward to meeting you over the coming days, and we'll be back at the closing ceremony to report on the key findings from our YP sessions. But whether you attend our sessions or not, it's our hope that you come away from this conference with some actionable takeaways to help you solve these challenges in your home country. The solutions from the world's biggest waste challenges are likely to come from you and your colleagues, so I hope that together we can make the most of this conference. And that leads me to introduce to you our final speaker for the opening ceremony, Mr. David Biederman, the CEO of SWANA and President.
This ain't a song for the broken hearted.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Baltimore. Welcome to the ISWA World Congress and WASTECON. We are so excited to have all of you here today. This is the first time that the ISWA World Congress has been in North America for more than 20 years. We are so excited to welcome you. And as our previous speakers have demonstrated, we have rich content to provide in our various sessions. Tremendous networking opportunities are here for you over the next few days. I would love to list all the people we need to thank for putting on this great event, but we don't have that much time. So I just want to broadly thank each of the sponsors who have helped make this event the terrific event that it is. I want to thank in particular our Mid-Atlantic chapter for hosting this event and doing such a great job with all the logistical details that are necessary to put on an event that attracts more than 2,000 people from 72 different countries. And last, but certainly not least, I have to thank my staff for their hard work and dedication for putting on this great event. So thank you to all of those groups. I ask all of you, to download the app that contains all the information on the schedule of the meetings and events that are taking place. Among other things, this means I don't have to give you a list now of all the big things that you need to go to. We have an amazing number of great keynote sessions right here in this room after this opening ceremony is over. We'll kick it off with our climate change keynote session. There are technical sessions going on all throughout the afternoon. And of course, I look forward to seeing all of you at the opening reception on the exhibit floor starting at 6:30. Tomorrow, we have a number of important technical sessions, a number of important keynote sessions. The exhibit hall will be open again from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Please visit with our exhibitors. Learn about the products and services that they sell so that you can become more versed in some of the solutions that can be provided to waste issues, not just here in the United States, but throughout the world. We will return here on Wednesday for our closing dump sites keynote session and then our closing ceremony. And then the exhibit hall will be open again in the afternoon, where we will provide much food and networking opportunities for those of you to come together one more time to learn from each other. The theme of our World Congress is no time to waste. There literally is no time to waste. We need to work together as a global community to help address the growing world problems relating to waste. Please use social media to promote this event while you're here. Thank you very much, and have a great week here in Baltimore. Thank you.